So, all right, let's see if you guys can see my screen, can't you? Although it's not letting me. There we go. All right, so like I mentioned, we're going to do our county review and updates. We're not doing bingo. We're actually doing a different, covering something else. And then we're going to do our youth activity policy training. So for our updates, just doing a little look back at 2024. In 2024, we had 55 clubs with 958 youth members enrolled and 230 volunteers. We had about 92 youth attend different camps at Canner's Cave 4-H camp throughout the year. We had more than 3,500 youth in school programs. And then we had 32 teens who were on Junior Fair Board and teen leaders. So some of our successes in 2024. We continued to offer STEM programming in schools and at the Scioto County Fair. And we are also, luckily, we were able to keep Rachel Sloan on. She was operating on a grant and was our STEM program assistant, but Rachel is now just a 4-H program assistant in our office, so she doesn't have to only do STEM programs. She'll be doing other programs. She'll be, you'll see her out and about doing things with Megan and I as we're doing programs. She will continue to do things in the schools. So if you guys are teachers and you're looking for STEM programs in the schools, feel free to reach out to our office. We do all kinds of fun things in the classrooms. And Rachel is available to do those things throughout the year. Another success was our ag and animal experiences at the fair. Our little ag experience zone is growing and looking better every year. We just had a 4-H committee meeting last night and talked about things that we're going to add to that area for this year. So be on the lookout for fun things to come with that. We also had some award-winning teens and volunteers that have been recognized at the state level. Carolyn and Greg Piggott were recognized as Meritorious Service Award winners for Ohio 4-H. That was a statewide award that was only given to I think 3 people at the state level this year, and they were recognized at the Ohio 4-H conference. Then Ethan Mullins, who is one of our teens, just found out that he received the Achievement Award for woodworking for his project work in woodworking. That means that Ethan was selected as the top 4-H member in that project category in the state of Ohio. And with that, he wins a trip to National 4-H Congress, where he will travel with a delegation from Ohio to represent our state at that conference in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you guys have kids in your clubs that are doing great things, please remember to ask them to fill out those Achievement Award applications, because I know we've got a ton of kids out there doing incredible things who could win these awards if they just take the time to apply for them. And if they want to apply for them but don't know how, tell them to reach out to me. So now looking forward to 2025. When we talk about communications and how we will reach out to you, just a reminder, the bulk of the things that we are going to send to you are going to come through email. So you need to make sure when you enroll in 4-H as a volunteer, or your families enroll, that they need to make sure they have a working email address that is associated with their enrollment, because that's how we're doing most of our communication, is through those through email in 4-H online. It's the quickest, easiest way for us to get information out to everyone. Additionally, we may be doing some newsletters, although we haven't done as many here recently because with our email through 4-H Online, we can just email things to you as we get it, which is even quicker than sitting and holding something for a month and waiting for us to do a newsletter and then email that. So we may do a newsletter here or there, but the bulk of the information you're going to get is just going to be in that 4-H Online email. And you can also sign up in 4-H Online. There is actually a place where you can say that you're willing to receive text messages. And so I have that checked on my own kids' enrollment, because then that way when an email gets sent, it sends me a text that says you just received an email about, swine tagging. And so then I know, oh, I need to go check my email. And then we also do Facebook posts. And so we do try and share things on Facebook just because we know that's a quick, easy way to get to reach a lot of our folks as well. But we also understand not everybody is on social media. So that's why things are going out through email. If you do know that some of your volunteers or families don't check email regularly, you should probably encourage them to check it. And if they don't have access to it, then those are the folks that we're asking you to be sure to share information with. So, and 4-H Online is open right now for everyone to enroll. Our enrollment deadline is April 15th. So we want to make sure that we get, as of this afternoon, I looked, we only have about 400 people enrolled. And if you look back at our numbers, that's not even half of what we should have. So please encourage your folks to get enrolled. All right, so this is on the screen, you'll see some livestock like dates, deadlines, things like that. But as far as updates and reminders, one of the main change we have for this year is that we will be selling 35 pens of market chickens in 2025. That number went up in either 23 or 24 for market rabbits. And so it's not confusing. They raised the number of market chickens to be equal to that of market rabbits. So it will be 35 chickens, pens of chickens that will sell this year. And those market chicken orders are due May 1. You can see there's a grid there on the screen, if you're able to see it, that has the different deadlines for those different species for their IDs. All of this information is in our pre-fair calendar located on our website. So if you're looking for dates and deadlines, I highly recommend printing a copy of that calendar out, stick it on your fridge, stick it somewhere so you can refer to it, save it on your phone. You can take screenshots of it or save it, download it onto your phone. That works too, but that pre-fair calendar does have all those dates in there. The Gilt Show previously had been moved to the county fair, so that is all still the same. And Carcass Contest will be the same as last year as well. Just wanted to remind those things because those are a little bit newer things in our world of livestock. Club updates, our policy is still that we're not doing county-wide fundraisers. We encourage your clubs, if you're raising money, to do your own club fundraisers, and then you can use those club fundraisers to help pay the 4-H, the fee for your 4-H members. That fee is still $5 per 4-H member that will get paid to the 4-H committee. I think that is due by July 15th. So if you want to make that a part of your club dues, you can do that, or you can do fundraisers. We actually, I know, had one of our clubs that recently they sold cheese and they did really, really good. It was Pearl Valley is the cheese company that they were selling cheese for, and they did a really, really good job with that cheese fundraiser, and they raised money for their club for their kids to pay dues and do, different activities and things. So you can choose to do your own club fundraiser. If your club wants to sell candy bars, you can contact a candy bar company and you guys can sell candy bars. So whatever you guys decide to do, if you want to do a car wash, you can do that. If you guys are doing a club fundraiser, we do just ask that you please contact us and let us know that you're doing a fundraiser. Let us know what you're doing. Just so if somebody calls my office and says, hey, some kid showed up at my door and they were selling Rada knives. Was that really a 4-H club or is that just some random person? I can say, no, that's the Green Clovers 4-H club. They sell Rada knives every year. So just contact us and let us know. And remember though that 4-H policy says you can't do any games of chance. So you can't do raffles, but other fundraisers are fine. Club verification forms will be coming to you after the enrollment deadline passes. What we will do is on April 16th, 17th, whatever. I haven't even looked at the calendar to see what day April 15th is on. April 15th is on a Tuesday. So probably on April 16th, we will start running reports of your club that list all of your members and all of the projects they're taking. Once we run all of those reports, it'll probably take a day or so to run the reports. Then we will mail a copy of those reports to the organizational advisor of every club. We are going to ask that you then double check those kids and their projects. And I would highly recommend that you check those with their families. Make sure if you have a club meeting and have the families read through it and make sure their kid is signed up for all the projects that they're supposed to be signed up for. And then you're going to sign off on it and send it back to us. If there's something that needs changed or corrected or something was left off or there's a kid missing that thought they enrolled but they're not on there, we have until May 1 to make those additions, changes, and corrections. And so that's why it's very important that you actually look at that list so we can make sure it's correct. We can make additions, changes, and corrections until May 1. So make sure you are on the lookout for that club roster, the verification form. And once you have gone through it and make sure everything is correct, or you make changes, then you will sign off on it and send it back to us because that's the form we will then use in July. We'll send another copy and say, okay, of these kids, please indicate which projects they've completed. So then we'll know which kids get fair passes. So please be on the lookout for that. And if you haven't gotten it and it's, April 25th or 26th, please, call us and let us know so we can make sure we can get a copy to you to review. If you haven't gotten it in just, a week after that deadline, reach out to us. We will try and send an email with it as well, but we need the paper copy sent back to us. So, other reminders. I just talked about the rosters. Every club packet had a club information sheet in it. If no one from your club was at our volunteer conference, you may want to call the office and give your club information to Emily or Andrew. For those of you who were not at our conference, you probably didn't get to meet Emily. Emily Peters is our new office assistant. She has filled the spot that was vacated when Lacey retired, and Emily's doing a wonderful job. She's really picking everything up very quickly and she's been spectacular. So if you haven't met her yet, feel free to call and say hi to her or stop in and meet her. Andrew, who started a little over a year ago, is still there in our office as well. But we did have club packets that had an information sheet that just basically says who the head advisor is, where your club meets, and what kind of projects you have, because we try to put together a club listing that is then on our website for people when they're looking for clubs. These just have some other dates here. Skillathon workshop will be held 6 to 8 p.m. on June 16th. That's an opportunity for our kids to get to practice Skillathon before they actually have to come and do Skillathon. So it's just it's laid back, you know, time for kids to get that opportunity to practice it and see what Skillathon's like. Camp registrations, please, please, please tell your kids about 4-H camp. Our camp registrations are due. The dates are on there. The dates are also on our calendar. 4-H committee does have some scholarships that are available for camps. So if you have kids that want to go to camp, but you don't, you think it'll be a struggle for their family to pay the whole fee, your club can do fundraising and help pay for kids' camp fees. That's always an option. But we do have a few camp scholarships available as well. So if you have a kid or family that you think the kids would benefit from camp, but you think it would be a struggle for them to pay that fee, please reach out to me and we will try and help get them there. Skillathon will be July 6th or July 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. Be sure that kids bring their project book. That is a part of the scoring for Skillathon. Project judging is all going to be on one day this year. It'll all be on July 15th. So we will have food judging, clothing judging, and still project judging. It will be the same as it's been the last few years, where we have pre-registration and then we'll assign times to kids. So just be on the lookout for that pre-registration information. Please encourage your kids to attend. Our project judging numbers have really dropped off. So we don't have nearly as many kids competing for those awards. And I know kids don't want to go through an interview, but that really is a valuable skill that they get by going to project judging. And it really does help them as they get older, helps them when they go for real job interviews. Those kids that have gone through project judging interviews for years, it comes a lot easier to them when they're doing college interviews, job interviews, those types of things. The style review and award ceremony will then be July 17th, and our pre-fair advisor meeting will be July 28th. And all of these dates are in the calendar. This slide just has our camp dates on it. Those are also on the calendar. As I mentioned, we do have some scholarships available, so please have folks reach out if they need those. So now we're going to do our competency part of the training. So basically, this part of the training, we're required to train you guys every year in things that will help you be more successful as a volunteer. And so this training is actually one that I did as a lunch and learn session a few weeks ago. And it's basically, we're just going to go through helping you guys find resources, navigate finding policies and procedures, and finding the 4-H resources. And the reason we're doing this is because trying to help you guys as you're navigating that whole process of helping kids and families. So why do we have policies? There are Ohio 4-H and Ohio State University both have minimum guidelines and policies that must be followed by 4-H professionals as well as volunteers and members and families. And so county programs can add to those requirements, but they can't lessen the requirements. So if Ohio 4-H policy says that clubs must hold at least 6 meetings a year, you know, we can't say, oh, no, clubs can only hold 5 meetings a year. We have to follow Ohio's policy. And so our policy is clubs must hold at least 6 meetings per year. And then those 4-H members must attend at least 5 of those meetings in order to be a member in good standing. And what that means is those kids have to be members in good standing in order to go to project judging or the county fair. So just keep that in mind. And so that is one of those policies that we follow because it is a state policy. So for 4-H volunteers to successfully fulfill their job responsibilities, you guys have to be provided with proper information for you to make informed and effective decisions and help your club members and their families. So a few of the topics that fall under the umbrella of Ohio 4-H policy is what makes up a 4-H club. So a 4-H club is made up of at least 5 kids from 3 families, and at least 3 of those children have to be 4-H project age, so that at least 8 years old and in 3rd grade. So if your club is struggling to find new members, I highly suggest maybe you send flyers to school with your child and invite kids from their class to join. You make some posts on social media. You can call our office and let us know if we have people calling to look for clubs that we can send them your way. But please remember that in order to be a club, you have to have at least 5 youth from 3 different families in your club. And I know over the years we've had some clubs that as kids get older and age out, then they're pushing the limits or below that limit. And so we have tended to give clubs a club may get put on probation for a year because they only have 4 members from 2 families or something. And so we try and work with clubs because we know as kids age out, then you're trying to recruit new people. But the policy does say that it has to be 5 members from 3 families. So you'll want to make sure that you're aware of that and trying to follow that. I just covered the minimum number of meetings. You have to have at least 6, and kids must attend at least 5. And those meetings have to be in person. Ohio 4-H got rid of virtual meetings. So you have to have 6 meetings in person, and kids must attend 5 of those. You can make some of your meetings, you can piggyback them with things. You can say, we're going to have a club meeting before quality assurance. And you could say, everybody meet at 5:30 because quality assurance starts at 6. And you could take attendance, say the pledges, have your president go over any business that they might need to do, and then adjourn and send everybody into quality assurance as the part of their educational activity for that meeting. You're welcome to do that. I know a lot of clubs that do that with QA and Skillathon and the Skillathon workshop and project judging or the awards ceremony. You can piggyback meetings onto things like that to help your members out because they're already going to be there. But you do have to have those in-person meetings to meet that requirement. Handling club finances and fundraising, those are policies that fall under Ohio 4-H. Transportation, there are those club finances, there are guidelines for that, and I'm going to show you where these things are here in just a minute. Transportation, use of the Clover, food service. If you guys are doing if you're doing a concession stand and you're selling hot dogs with sauce or hot food, there is a certification that you have to get through 4-H to serve food. It's called Occasional Quantity Cook Service, and that certificate is there's a training, an online training you go through, and then you receive a certificate, and I think it's good for 3 years. All of these are policies that are available on the Ohio 4-H website. And so I guess my thing that I want to encourage is for you guys all to log in and make sure you skim through those policies and make sure you're aware of them. Most of these things I go over with volunteers in new volunteer training, but some of you guys who've been volunteers for a long time, maybe may have been a long time ago, may have been 20 years ago, when you went through that new volunteer training, and you haven't seen or heard of that since then. So be sure you are skimming over those policies. And so this is where you can find them. The Ohio 4-H Volunteer Handbook. Our 4-H Volunteer Handbook is available. I believe you can access it through our website, but I always just go to ohio4h.org. And then there's a tab that says volunteers. And then when you pull down on that, it says club leaders. And then it lists the Ohio 4-H Volunteer Handbook. You can access that digitally, and it will have links to all different resources for you. It'll have like a link to the club financial form. It'll have a link to the transportation waiver form. So if you guys are going on a field trip and you're transporting kids, you can print out those permission slips to transport kids. All of that stuff is available in this handbook. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that this handbook is a resource for you when you have questions about things related to being a volunteer. This is where most of those answers are. It's where I look things up. When people call me and I'm not sure about a question or an answer, I log in and look it up in this book. So this is a great resource, and I highly recommend that everybody just skims through it. I don't expect you to memorize it. I don't have it memorized, but I expect you to skim through it and know that it's there. And that way, when you do need to look something up, you'll be able to say, oh yeah, I remember seeing that in that handbook. I can go refer to that. Well, there we go. All right. Other places that you can find policies. So you can find them on the Ohio 4-H website, which is ohio4h.org, or you can find it on our county website. So if we're talking about Scioto County policies, you would go to scioto.osu.edu. If you want to read Van Wert County's policies, you can log on to vanwert.osu.edu. I doubt that anybody wants to read theirs, but that's how you can find your county extension website. In addition to our county policies and state policies, there are also policies and guidelines that are related to exhibition. So like county fair exhibition or state fair exhibition. Those policies and guidelines would then be found on the Ohio Department of Agriculture's website and our Scioto County Agricultural Society's website. So when you're talking about specific Ohio Department of Ag rules and guidelines that our fair has to follow, those exhibition rules and guidelines are located on the Department of Agriculture's website. If you have questions about where to find those types of rules, please reach out. Megan and I are happy to help you find those things and find the answers. We want people to ask questions rather than just assume they know the answer. I'd much rather you ask and us help you find the answer to something than assume something and it be wrong. So who makes all of these rules? State rules are made by Ohio 4-H, the Department of Ag, the Ohio State Fair. They all have their own rules, policies, and guidelines that we follow because we are affiliated with them. Then we, at the county level, make our 4-H rules. And so like a county level rule would be that every club member has to pay $5 4-H fee to be in 4-H in Scioto County. That's a county level rule because that rule varies from county to county. And I can assure you it's actually less in Scioto County than it is in almost every other county. Most of the others are either $10 or $20 or more. And then junior fair rules are made by our senior fair board adopts those rules, but they work with our committees, our market and breeding animal committee, our horse committee. They work with the senior fair board to make the rules that are specific to our county fair. So like weights on animals, those are specific to our county fair. Our volunteers and the fair board work together to establish those rules. All right, so that's the end of that. How am I doing on time? It is only 6:36. I'm going to have you guys done in it. We're going to be done by almost like 7 o'clock. If you guys were all unmuted, I'm sure I'd hear you cheering. All right. So I'm going to have to stop sharing this screen and go to a different screen to do our get the child protection training. Give me just a second. All right. Are you guys seeing the child abuse neglect reporting? All right. So this is the part of the training that is also mandatory that everyone gets every year. And so you guys have, if you guys have been volunteers, you've all seen this already, but we do have to do it every year with all of our volunteers. And so we're gonna get through this. So the objective of this training is to familiarize you with OSU's protection of minors policy, to review the standards of behavior, and to give you definitions of child abuse and neglect, to identify 4 main types of maltreatment, help you recognize indicators of abuse and neglect, and to learn OSU's reporting requirements, what information you need, and what happens after a report is made. So this policy was established, I believe, in 2013. So yes, issued in 2013. So it's actually been, what, 12 years now that we've been doing this. The reason they did this is to establish a policy for volunteers and folks who are affiliated with Ohio State so they will know how to report and what they're required to report. So the university will not be found liable because they neglected to report any instances of abuse. And so it does apply to faculty, staff, appointees, students and student employees, and volunteers. So even though you guys are going through this right now, I also have to go through training. Even though I'm teaching it, I have to complete training every year on different policies that Ohio State has. And so anyone who is affiliated with Ohio State and works with youth has to attend one of these trainings. So the requirements for the youth protection program are program registration, which is done through 4-H online. with our 4-H clubs. So all of our clubs are registered through the university because they are in that 4-H online system. All of our volunteers have to annually sign a standards of behavior. You do that when you apply to be a volunteer, and then every year when you complete your enrollment, there is a little box you're checking that says, I understand and agree to these standards of behavior. So that is where hopefully you click on it and read it. But if not, I'm going to show you what it is here in just a minute, so you'll know what you're agreeing to. You do have to have a criminal history fingerprint background check every 4 years. If you have not had that done yet, you need to get it done because it needs to be done by April 15th. And those who it actually was supposed to be done by February 15th, we've sent out 2 letters to people reminding them to get it done. And probably only about half of our people have even done it as of last week at our volunteer training. So that volunteer background check has to be done in order for you to be a volunteer. And if it's not done, then the state will have us, it's our enrollment deadline. They'll have us print out a list and you'll receive a letter saying, thank you, but you're no longer a volunteer. You're welcome to come back and be a volunteer next year. You'll have to reapply and go through the whole process. So please, if you're due for that background check, go get it done. You do have to attend annual training, which is what you're doing right now. And then there is the accountability for our folks. And as I mentioned, the reason we do annual training is because Ohio State does not want to be found liable for neglecting to train people and being responsible for children or abuse not being reported. So, as I mentioned, you sign a standards of behavior. This is signed annually. It sets expectations for positive behavior. You do need to remember that you are serving as a role model to youth. The standards of behavior does prohibit illegal, harassing, abusive, and bullying behaviors. It also prohibits you intentionally placing yourself in a one-on-one situation with minors. So you always want to try and be cognizant of the fact that, not only are we trying to protect the kids, we're also trying to protect you. I don't ever want one of you to face a false allegation of, abuse because you were in a situation with a minor and they make an allegation against you. So protect yourselves by making sure that you always observe the rule of 3. If you have, if you're working with kids, you always want to make sure they're at least it's you and 2 kids or 2 adults and 1 child. Just observe that rule of 3. And I understand that sometimes, you may be sitting there waiting for a parent to pick a kid up from an event or whatever. And sometimes you just can't help it. But the best practice is to make sure that you are not placing yourself in those one-on-one situations. So these are some things that changed in recent years. In 2021, they added to the standards of behavior wording that says volunteers will not possess or consume intoxicating substances, including drugs or alcohol, while responsible for the care, custody, or control of 4-H participants. That's always been prohibited, but they had to specifically spell it out in 2021. So it is directly stated in that standards of behavior now. So if you're having a 4-H club meeting, you cannot be consuming alcoholic beverages as a part of a 4-H club meeting. If your 4-H club meets and you're going to have a bonfire with all the families and everything, that's not where all of the adults are standing around drinking. That's not a 4-H club meeting. If your family friends want to have a bonfire and the adults are drinking, that's fine, but that's not a 4-H meeting. And so you need to make sure that families understand this is not a part of the 4-H program. This is separate and not part of our 4-H club meetings. Also, you need to remember that you will uphold and support responsible and lawful use of social media. We do remind our volunteers that if you are friends with 4-Hers and families on social media, that you're acting appropriately on social media. You know, I'm not about stifling anyone's freedom of speech on social media, but do remember that if you have 4-H members or their families that are friends with you on social media, that we do want you to act appropriately. Um, I'm friends with some of my teen leaders and junior fair board members on social media. I'm very aware of what I post. And so just trying to be mindful as you post things is good. And we want to make sure that there isn't any harassing or hostile environments created through social media. I know a lot of our 4-H clubs have social media accounts of their own. If you do, you are actually supposed to invite either Megan or myself to be a part of that club group so we can be aware of what's going on your social media account. Working with youth virtually, this I actually don't even have to go over right now because we are not doing virtual meetings anymore. Ohio 4-H has said that all clubs should be meeting in person. And so coming out of the pandemic, when we were meeting virtually, then the research that they found was, that kids needed that social interaction, that face-to-face in-person meeting. And so our clubs should be meeting in person now. So I am flipping through those. So child abuse, when OSU has a definition of child abuse, and it is when a child has suffered or faces substantial threat of suffering or physical or mental wound, injury, disability, or condition that reasonably indicates abuse or neglect. It could include any conduct of a sexual nature that may be harmful to a minor's mental, emotional, or physical welfare. And so there are 4 types of maltreatment, child maltreatment that are recognized, and those are neglect, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and physical abuse. We're going to go through what each of these are. So neglect is the failure of an adult to provide for a child's basic educational or medical needs. That could include any of the things that are here on the screen. And so those are just things that you want to be aware of as you're working with kids. Emotional abuse is a pattern of harmful interactions between an adult and child. It could include criticizing, belittling, or rejecting that child. Emotional abuse is a chronic act that interferes with the psychological and or development of that child. So that emotional abuse is something that is repetitive and repeatedly happening. Sexual abuse is when a person uses power and directly involves the child in any sexual act, or involves the child in pornography or forces the child to witness sexual acts. It could be any sexual activity with or inflicted upon the child. The act may be for the sexual gratification of the perpetrator or of a third party. So sexual abuse is never, keep in mind with that, it's never okay for a person in a position of power to have a romantic or sexual relationship of any nature with a 4-H member, no matter that the age of consent in Ohio is 16. So it's just like a teacher and a student. You are considered, as a 4-H volunteer, you are considered to be a person in power over your 4-H members. So it doesn't matter their age, it doesn't matter if they are an 18-year-old 4-H member. It is still not okay for a volunteer to be in a romantic relationship with a 4-H member. And that is because under Ohio Revised Code, if any allegations are made or any inappropriate relationships happen, you could be charged with sexual battery. So we do not want that to happen to any of our folks. So, you know, these positions of authority are 4-H advisors, camp counselors, judges, fair board directors, teachers, administrators, coaches, 4-H educators. All of us fall under that. Physical abuse is any physical injury inflicted other than by accidental means. And so when you're trying to determine if something is abuse versus accident, the things that you kind of look for are the severity and nature of the injury. Where is the injury? What's the size and shape of the injury? Does the child's story match the injury? And does the injury, is it consistent with the child's abilities? How many injuries does the child have, and how often are they injured? Those are all questions that might pop into your head. And when we're talking about abuse, it might be something that you suspect is happening, but there also might be times when a child actually tells you because they feel that you're the safe person for them. And so that's why we want you to be aware of these things, because you could be that safe person for them to talk to. So that's why we're going through all of this. So these are just some marks that could look like what a mark could look like on the body if a child was struck with different items. Well, sorry. And so those are just things to be aware of as you're working with kids if you see these types of marks on them. So abuse versus accident. Opinions are subjective, and sometimes those depending on who it is, the judge or the person investigating, it's subjective as to whether it's abuse or not. And so that's not our job to investigate, though. If you think that the treatment of a child is excessive or something like that, then you need to report it and then let the authorities handle the investigation. Different people have different viewpoints, but if it's something that you feel is excessive, then we ask you to report it. My thing's not wanting to advance, sorry. So abuse is a non-accidental injury. Indicators of child abuse or neglect, they are listed here on the screen. There are a lot of things that can be indications of abuse or neglect. So these are just some things that you can be aware of. There are actually even more, but these are a few of the more common ones. There are additional indicators of abuse that can come from parents. And if the parents appear disinterested, they fail to return calls, they become angry or threatening, they refuse to discuss the child's problems, they refer to the child as different, bad, rotten, etc. Or they could be on the other side and be overly protective of that child, not want that child to be alone with anyone, simply because they're worried that the child might tell they're being abused. Those are all indicators from the parents. So if a child confides in you, there are some do's and don'ts. We do ask that you remain calm. We don't want you to ask leading questions. We don't want you to investigate. It's not your job to investigate to figure out if the child is being abused. If the child confides in you and tells you that they are, you need to report it. You don't have to investigate or ask a bunch of questions of other people. You just report what they've told you and then go from there. We don't want you to promise that you won't tell because we want you to be able to still maintain that sense of safety with that child, and we don't want you to break their confidence. So don't say that you're not going to tell because you have to tell. What we do want you to do is promise that you're going to get them help. We do want you to take action, and we do want you to maintain confidentiality. We want you to maintain confidentiality for the child's benefit. So if a child confides in you or you suspect something, we don't want you going and telling every parent in your 4-H club what your suspicions are. We want you to report it and follow the proper protocol for reporting, but maintain confidentiality to protect that child. And additionally, we want you to be able to then protect yourself. Because as long as you're maintaining that confidentiality, then the parent or suspected abuser is not going to know you're the one who reported it. So when you report, this has changed since 13 years ago, or however, 12 years ago when we started doing this. Before, you had to make a couple different phone calls. Now you make one phone call. If the child is in imminent danger, so if you actually see somebody physically abusing or sexually assaulting or whatever, if you actually are witnessing it happening, you call 911. If it is not something that is like in process happening right that moment, then you're going to make the call to Children's Services. There is the 855 number on the screen, but if this is a 4-H member and it's through your 4-H club here in Scioto County, you can also find the number for Scioto County Children's Services. It's actually a New Boston phone number, I believe a 456 phone number. When I've had to help people make reports before, I just Google it. And that's how I get get that number for those folks. If you call and make a report, please note the name of the person you're talking to, because you will need that when you then file your report with Ohio State. So, and I know this because I've helped other folks make the reports to Ohio State, and Ohio State does follow up. So they want to find out who those people that you talk to are so they can follow up with them. So what is required when you report? You are going to then, within 1 business day, file a report with Ohio State. So you will need to complete this form that there's a link to here on the screen. Don't expect you to remember that link. I don't remember that link. I always have to look it up. Luckily, I've only had to look it up twice in those 13 years. But so after you have filed that report with either Children's Services or called 911, then you have 1 business day to file this report with OSU. And so you will need to then contact our office, and Megan or I will help you find this link so you can complete this report to Ohio State. And it's an online form. We'll get to see it here. It's an online form here that is not too terribly complicated. It's just kind of like an incident report form, asks you some basic questions, and then you hit submit. So what to have when you're making that report? If you have it, it's great to have the name, age, and address of the child or children, and the parents, and the person you suspect who is abusing or neglecting the child. And the reason you suspect the abuse or neglect. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. If you do not have all of that information, do not let that stop you from calling and reporting. Because we would rather you err on the side of the safety of the child than say, I don't have enough information, so I'm not going to report it. If you don't know the name of the person that's abusing the child, but you know someone is, call and give the child's name. And you should, I mean, I would assume would have the child's address because if they're in your club, you should be able to look that up or we can help you find that. But don't hold back on reporting because you think you don't have enough information. So reporting is mandated through Ohio Revised Code. In our official capacity as a volunteer and my capacity as an educator, it is required for you to report if you suspect or know that a child is being abused. On top of that, we hope you would do it anyhow because it is our moral and ethical duty to do right by these kids. That's the whole reason we're a part of the 4-H program, is because we want to make the lives of kids better. And so that is our duty to report. Giving your name, you need to know that your name will not be released by Department of Jobs and Family Services, and you are provided protection through Ohio Revised Code. You also have immunity from civil and criminal liability for reports that have been made in good faith, and you're also protected by Ohio State's whistleblower policy. What to do if you're confronted by a parent. I always tell people this is where I give you permission to lie. You're allowed to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then you disengage and you leave the situation. You don't need to engage with them or argue with them or say anything back to them. You are perfectly within your rights to just say, I don't know what you're talking about, and leave. So I'm not going to go through this because we're several years past that now, but it did, reporting did go down during the COVID pandemic, and they think that's just because kids were not around other people. Most people were staying home and social distancing, so reports were not being made. What happens after a report is made is this list of things here could be any of the things that could happen. There might just be a risk assessment, and it may be determined that it's not abuse, and then nothing happens. Or maybe it's, a false accusation on the child's part, or something that might be the case. But if they do investigate it and find that there's something there, then there are many different levels of things that could happen. Additionally, what you need to know is when you make that report and then you complete the report to Ohio State will follow up on it. I know that in the past when I've had reports made before, and our Jobs and Family Services, or Children's Services, sorry, did not find that there was, you know, it was not an abuse situation. It was, something was a false allegation, but Ohio State followed up on it, and they followed up to make sure that the Children's Services did do an investigation. So with that, we hope that you are able to recognize potential signs of neglect, that you know the resources that are available in your community, and you can help connect families with needed, that if you do a report, that can help connect families with needed social services, and that this will foster positive relationships with the parents and youth in your club, and that we're always offering words of encouragement to our youth and their families. With that, does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Um, Before you leave here, do make sure that you have typed your name and your club into the chat. So please make sure that you have typed your name and your club into the chat, because I'm going to save that and that's how you're going to get your, um, that's how you're going to get your credit. I know it's not the most exciting training when you have to sit through it on Zoom, but I I hope that it is beneficial for those of you who have crazy work schedules and crazy kids schedules. So, I apologize for it just being me talking nonstop. Next year, you'll get to hear Megan talk a lot. So make sure you have your name and club in the chat before you log off. And then once you have your name and club in the chat, you are free to go. I'm going to stop recording.